Welcome to Encouragement for Living Life with Lockwood and Lockwood. The guys are here to encourage you in your attempt to live more confidently and successfully in our world. They are highly trained and experienced mental health professionals, but they are not your mental health professional. They are sharing encouragement through information and discussion. People are complex. Just because an idea helps one person doesn't mean it will help someone else. You need to consult with your own professional who will hopefully know what is best for you and your situation. Now, it's time for Lockwood and Lockwood.
I'm tired of insecurity, fear, and maybe even dread.
Okay.
So I want to go back. These are big areas in this culture today. Fear is rampant. But I also I want to kick around a theory I have with you too today about fear and insecurity and dread. No, I guess we'll follow the order. I'll have some discipline here.
Okay.
So a lot about fear. You wrote a book on fear. Would you like to define fear for people?
Yeah. So just to be clear, in the clinical psych research, they typically differentiate between fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
And so, and like I'm in my book, at least, it's called The Fear Problem. It's on my shelf there, but I kind of pick that apart a little bit. I don't know that it's super useful because the brain doesn't really differentiate the two per se. Anyways,
Okay.
that's a longer discussion, but generally speaking, fear is considered a present focused, immediate threat management reaction. So I'm afraid of this thing that's happening right now, right? There's a tiger right there. I'm about to get bitten and eaten. I'm about to die. So fear is like a reaction to a present threat, if that makes sense. It's an emotional reaction to a present focused threat. Whereas anxiety is typically described as like a future-oriented threat management reaction, right? Generally speaking. So again, I'm not super picky on the word, but for me, that's how most people define them.
Well, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but yeah, that is interesting. Okay. So what about insecurity?
I would call insecurity an attitude. So insecurity is a way of approaching a situation, a person, a relationship, a belief about yourself, whatever. So it's an attitude. It's an attitude based on seeing yourself as incapable in a situation where you literally are capable, or you might not be clear how capable you are.
Okay. I would add with insecurity, fear, with you on fear. Insecurity is a attitude or belief that you don't have what you need to be okay. So that when you encounter a situation that would provoke fear, like ask your boss for a raise, maybe, and saying something difficult to your spouse or partner, that you need something and you're scared to bring it up. The people that are used to getting what they need reliably are what I call more secure people. They have a belief inside them that what they need is there and that they will get it because the kind of attachment they had growing up was what we call a secure attachment. And secure means reliable. So if you reliably get what you need, not perfectly, but just reliably get what you need, then you grow up and you're one around the world here. You're working in this world of ours and you go, well, I'll find what I need. I know I'll find it. So I know I'll find a job. I know I'll find the spouse. I know I'll find the girlfriend, boy. I know I'll find them. They have a belief that a lot of people don't have who run around the world going, I'm screwed. I'm not going to get it. It's not there. And they can live from a mentality of deep insecurity, which can really confound their life. So the more secure a person is internally, this is all an internal belief system or attitude. I'm fine with the word attitude with that one too. Those people pass and go through this life much more comfortably than people who grew up feeling insecure. What's the percent of attachments that are insecure?
It's around 50%.
Around 50% now. I was going to say 45. That's what it used to be, but you're more current because of your teaching and excuse me. in teaching and stuff, and this year. But that's a lot of people that don't feel very secure. And you put people in a world where they feel insecure already, and you put them into a world that's loaded with fear-provoking information, media, etc., it can really put them in a big bind and really magnify their fear. So that's insecurity, just a general point about insecurity. And then we have the third category, which is dread, which is a whole different kind of thing. It feels the same. You get adrenaline going when you're afraid. When you feel dread, you get adrenaline going, but you may even get a panic attack going. It's so extreme. And dread usually comes from trauma. That someone felt so annihilated. That analytic people call it annihilation. Other people call it systemic trauma, developmental trauma, things like that, versus incident trauma, rape, an act of abuse, that are more isolated versus something that has been going on for months or years. But people can relive trauma and feel intense dread.
Sure.
And that's an animal that needs clinical attention. That person going through that kind of stuff is not going to have a very fun life. They're going to really do some extreme suffering, at least at times when it's activated, and it may not be activated much. But if it's activated routinely, you're really going to be in a position where it's difficult to live in this world. In relationship, in career, all kinds of places it can come up in and really create a lot of havoc with your life. So anyway, that's kind of a background. We'll talk more about these three, but I wanted to go through a theory I had.
Okay.
The incidence of mental illness have been reduced the last year or so. All the numbers have gone down. Have you heard that? Seen that?
Yeah, I've seen them.
Okay. Well, I have a theory about why. Okay. And it embodies some of the fear, insecurity, and dread that we're talking about. Well, this is a theory. I don't know, it may not be true.
Okay.
The border has been secured. There's no more criminals. We're not hearing about criminals coming into the country. We're hearing that they're not, and they're actually getting shipped out. I think that creates more of a sense of security, lessens fear. Climate change has been reduced to a concern versus a catastrophic, soon-to-happen event. That has changed, and we can look at Gates, what Gates did, and reframed it as not a present danger, but something, again, more to be concerned over the long run. That removed a tremendous amount of fear. We even know that certain generations were not going to have children because if they believe the world's going to end soon,
Sure,
they're scared. Now, they still want a relationship to not be alone with their fear, but they weren't going to have children. And that's eased up. And then third, the woke mindset has been pushed out of a lot of situations that cause a lot of distress and a lot of people in our culture, like men playing in women's sports kind of thing. A lot of people push in values on people that the vast majority of this country did not have. And I think that created what you would call anxiety in a lot of people. Now, since that's been backed off a lot, I think a lot of people have also relaxed there too. Now, some people created more anxiety for, people that would support that to help change the culture so they feel more comfortable in the culture. See, so there is a downside to that too for one group of people. But I think for the majority of the country, the reason mental illness rates have gone down is because all these big mega fears have relaxed. And because of that, people's anxiety has gone down, their fear has gone down, depression has gone down, all related to these kind of things. They're all affected by these kind of things. Even personality disorders can be affected by these things. Exacerbated, the more fear you have, the worse it is. So that's my theory about why these rates have settled down some, which is good. And if it's true, it points to one simple fact. When people know they're secure, it's calming. It's like the parent who provides a secure attachment to the child. When that child feels a secure attachment, they're a relaxed and happy child. Doesn't mean bad things can't happen. Bad things happen. But they are generally a relaxed and happy child because they're not walking around in fear. And a lot of kids were walking around in a lot of fear. Oh my God, the world's ending because of climate change. Oh my God, there's bad people going to be in our neighborhood that could hurt us. Now, by the way, that wasn't true in most cases. Probably 80% of neighbor, 90%, those people were not there because they wouldn't exist in those areas. You know what I'm saying? But it still, I think, had an impact on our society as a whole culturally. So that was a theory I've been thinking about the last couple weeks about why those rates have dropped down, and less work for some mental health professionals, but good. There's less work then for mental health professionals. What do you think?
That'd be good. That'd be good. So as a hypothesis, it's, I think, decent. I think one thing I'd like to just, again, plant a flag about is a lot of these public surveys and things like that, they use very flimsy self-report measures. So like, you know, one of the things I love to do in graduate school is teach my doctorate students how to analyze tests and measures for their reliability, validity, psychometric properties, things like that. It's a lot of fun. Test construction theory is a lot of fun if you're a nerd. And so most of these self-report measures are basically garbage. They're basically astrology. And so the fact that really, genuinely, they're terrible. And so, and there's like hours of things to say. Come be a student. But like the short story is I think you're correct that people are self-reporting less misery on these measures, which is good. And I'm glad to hear that people are self-reporting less misery. I don't believe that the rates of actual mental illness changed at all. I believe that people just self-reported more misery. Like when the pandemic first started, there were all these terrible news stories where people were self-reporting massive anxiety and depression. And like, well, no, duh. Everyone thought the world was going to fall apart, right? And so,
Right.
of course, they were self-reporting, feeling miserable. That doesn't mean that the prevalence of generalized anxiety disorder went up. It just meant people were having a normal reaction to a normal problem.
Well, hold on. I disagree in part.
You think
I think that societal situation pushed people that would not be diagnosable into a diagnosable category. I think you're right. There's a on the border kind of group of people that then ended up in the diagnosable group of people. I think you're right about most people that they were having a normal reaction to a very intensely scary situation.
I think I really genuinely doubt that. And one of the other reasons I doubt that is because it just doesn't track with anything historical too. So like
Okay.
The rates of mental illness didn't go up during the Vietnam War. They just didn't. And that was like a really scary time, or the gas shortage of the 80s. Or whatever, like the rates of those are big crises. People talked about global cooling.
Vietnam War didn't affect people here. It wasn't a global war.
It was all over the news. It was all over the news.
But not in a fearful kind of way. It was all over the news, and a lot of people were angry about it.
Yeah, but like the rates of personality disorders didn't go up because of that.
You know, believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think a lot of people just displayed their distress more, but I don't believe it actually caused them to go to therapy more. Right.
What do you think? Do you think more people went to therapy because they couldn't contain their fiery rage? Because the rates of therapy were so high, people going to therapy in droves during those times.
Yeah, they had nothing else to do. They had nothing else to do. They're trapped inside. They're trapped inside. Of course, they're going to find a telehealth therapist.
Well, it really stayed that way, elevated until the election.
I don't think the rates of rehab admissions didn't go up. It's like.
Well, now that's a different population. I'm talking about, I couldn't find a counselor for people. They were so booked. I think people that were average counselors were having full practices.
No, I know. And what I'm saying is like, I think there's just a lot of people who were lonely, who were trapped inside and who saw their situation as like reasonably unsafe, even though it wasn't technically true. And so I feel less compelled to think that rates of mental illness actually went up. Rates of distress went up for sure, but distress and illness aren't the same thing. But if you have a culture that says you should feel bad, then you're just responding to a cultural norm. It's like judging people for going to a
I agree
Pentecostal
with you.
church and they're screaming. It's like, of course they're screaming. They're in a Pentecostal church. Like, what do you expect? You know what I mean?
I agree with you to a point. I just think there's a borderline group of people that an extreme fearful societal situation can push them into diagnosable mental illness.
Maybe. I don't think those are real diagnoses. I think it's just shitty society and bad therapists. I think it's mostly bad therapists who should those therapists should know better to not diagnose someone who's in a crappy environment.
Well, yeah, you should. But crappy environments help create mental illness, son.
Very rarely. That's actually not what the literature says. Attachment's real, but people with personality disorders don't magically develop personality disorders at the age of 8 because they were neglected. People who are real narcissists have been that way since very young.
Oh, we know. We do.
And that's
know.
more genetics than it is parenting in every way, shape, and form. Now, trauma, maybe PTSD.
Oh, you just stepped in something there. Well, people who are narcissistic have either intensely deep shame, which pushes for perfection, which makes them narcissistic, or they have one connection with the mother, which is they're all good if they perform and they're nothing if they don't. Those are the two underlying issues with narcissistic personality disorders. So let's be careful.
I invite
You're getting into my turf here.
I invite you to check out Keith Campbell.
Keith Campbell.
Yep. Big researcher on narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Might change your mind a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, I've seen too much up front, so I've seen too much office and.
Dude, I live in LA. What do you think I see? I have a bigger sample than you at this point. I hadn't been doing it nearly half as long as you. So let's be clear.
Small fraction of what I've done, yeah. Actual therapy with people, yeah. Let's remember that too.
But
Hey, by the way, folks who are listening and watching this, we can disagree and be respectful of each other. And I learned a lot from this guy in the other chair over there, my son. You know, he's got a lot of good information that helps round out the pictures on different kinds of issues that people have. You know, so, but I think maybe at this point we should talk about, because I think we're talking about generally, because you helped me when we were talking before, there's inside issues and there's outside issues.
Yeah.
And my focus obviously inside issues, although I hear about outside issues all the time too. They impact people certainly.
Sure.
But my job with people is to strengthen their inside so they can deal with what is going on outside better. You know, but you have a lot of focus on the outside too, which I think is very relevant. Not that we can change a lot of the outside sometimes. Sometimes we couldn't change. COVID came.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't change that. We couldn't change this news epidemic about global warming. You know, now it's subsided, but we couldn't for years. We couldn't. You know, lots of things were happening. Billions and trillions of dollars were going in that direction.
Yeah.
You know, but it also brought a lot of fear with it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
I think
fear. Yeah. Well, let's talk about solutions to fear, insecurity, you know, and dread for people. You know, what do you think about common fear?
I think it just depends upon the kind of fear, right? So like,
Right.
if you're going to a job where you're afraid of your boss every day, that's different than like you're in an intimate partner violence relationship, which is different than I'm poor and I don't know if I'm going to eat today, which is, I mean, there's so many different types of scenarios. And so to me, it depends upon the kind of threat you're facing, right? So
Yes.
if you're living in fear because you face a very understandable and reasonable threat, like I don't know if I'm going to eat, then that fear is extremely healthy and useful, and it's going to serve you as a motivator and protector. right? Fear will motivate you to do more to take care of yourself in that situation, or this in theory,
It can.
in theory, yeah. Whereas if you find yourself in something like an intimate partner violence relationship or something, I mean, I have my unprofessional thoughts about that, but my professional thoughts are definitely seek out help and make sure you're safe as humanly possible. Um, and then the more relatively mundane speaking example of like, I'm afraid of my boss, or I don't know how to speak up for myself, or I'm worried about the world, or whatever it is like, to me, for those kinds of issues, I think there's two things I always consider with people. And it's not a black or white thing. It's just kind of like a maybe spectrum thing. So, to what degree does a situation actually matter? So, let's just take the boss thing. So let's say you're afraid of your boss. Your boss is a dick, your boss is stupid, your boss is mean, whatever. Whatever the truth is doesn't even matter, right? To some degree. So you're afraid of your boss. Question number one in my mind is, how much does that person really matter? For you to do your job correctly, right? And whatever the job is, whether it's a white collar job, blue collar job, fast food, I've done it all. How much does that person really matter? Right? Like when I was working in fast food as a kid, I really liked my boss. I loved Jerry because I was into his daughter and he had a cool car and all these things. But like, I never really thought about him ever. I never once thought about him, I think, while I was working there, except for when he was there and just like, let's brown nose the boss and stuff. But like, I was never afraid of him.
Or get close to his car.
Yeah, get close to his car, his beautiful red 70 Chevelle with white interior. But like, I was never like trying to press him per se, or I was never worried about him because it's fast food and you just kind of know, like, who cares? But like, regardless of the setting, what I'm trying to say is like, how much does that person really matter? Like, why are you giving this person the time of day?
You are speaking about something very important called perspective. The kind of
I would call it not attachment, but yeah. Yeah. So like in some
doesn't call it
situations,
perspective. That's more down to earth. But anyway, yeah, you're saying you can change your perspective or your attitude about the situation. Look, how important is that guy really in there on the moment to moment functioning of your life there?
yeah.
And that gives you a perspective that if I let him get under my skin, I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah, which is different than if like your boss is writing you. Like if you have a person who's like always in your ear multiple hours a day, then you can't get away from them. That's the problem. Right. That's a different problem, which means you need different actions, which leads us to like the other mundane type of catastrophizing people do, where they stare at social media and they think the planet's going to explode, or all the trans people are going to die, or all the Christians are going to get killed by the lefties, or whatever your catastrophizing thought is. It's like, the truth is, it's probably not going to happen, number one. Number two, why are you spending all this time on social media? What's wrong with you? Go talk to somebody. Go play with your pet.
You're talking about an area that we're going to talk a lot more about, I think, in future podcasts, but social media. If you want to reduce that typical fear, get the hell away. Get the hell away from social media. I can't. So it just feeds fear. It's based on fear. We know clicks on the internet are brought on by fear. The more intense the brain reacts, and fear is a strong reaction, that they actually make more money from you by you being afraid.
100%.
Yeah. Also, they reduce social media dramatically.
Yeah, it's good for the world the less time you spend online. But beyond even that, I would say, like, what is the algorithm you're crafting on your social media? So, for instance, I have an Instagram account and it's literally only my cats. That's literally what it is. And so the only accounts that I follow are a couple of friends and like other cool cat accounts, because there's some amazing cats all over the world that are just super cool and interesting and different. And they all have weird personalities. And so, like, my Instagram feed is basically cats and weightlifting. Literally. Literally. That's literally all it is. There's no politics. There's not even, like, I used to be a big watch guy and I'm still a big car guy. I don't even do that on there because I'll get stuck in a rabbit hole of staring at like my next car and the next Rolex and all this crap that like certainly is fun and at some point or whatever, but like I don't need to be feeding my brain that all day. It's not really enriching my life, you know? But I might learn something about the gym, or I might see a new cool breed of cat. It's like okay to distract a little bit. But when I set myself up to fail by creating a lot of distraction, then I'm not really honoring what matters.
Well, again, distraction, but particularly fear. If you're feeding it from media, you're feeding the fear, you're going to have more fear. That part's pretty simple, and that's a big one. But like I said, we'll come back to that more. Well, what about insecurity? See, this is more my bailiwick. We're trying to strengthen the individual and help them to grow so they feel more secure, internalize a sense of reliability that you'll get what you need, you have what you need, you'll get what you need. And then that changes their belief system into expecting more that they're going to get what they need instead of getting disappointment, abandonment, whatever it is that they brought into the world with them based on what happened with them growing up, and what happened to the culture around them too, obviously, when they were growing up, because it does make a big difference. So that's a different animal, and you can grow. I don't know how easy it would be to grow become more secure. I assume some people could do that just by reading, understanding, and then they could really work on changing their belief systems to varying degrees. The people I see, it's a long, massive haul to come to believe that you can actually trust authorities to be there for you reliably, therefore internalize the sense that you can go out and find it in the world too. And it's an amazing thing when you change and you begin to believe that the world's full of good, that there's plentiful resources out there for you versus that scarcity mindset where the insecurity says, no, something bad's going to happen. I'm not going to get what I need, which just keeps them afraid and stuck and not able to take the risks they need to really build a good life. So that's kind of some thoughts about insecurity.
Yeah, I'd like to pick on the scarcity mindset thing because I think that's
Yeah.
really important, and it's complicated, right? Because some people do come from a background of trauma or absolute poverty or even relative poverty. You're not like
Right.
so poor that you can't afford clothes, but you're just poor enough that you can't eat consistently, or you kicked out of your house multiple times. Like, there's a lot of like a lot of loss and a lot of poverty and a lot of shame and a lot of trauma that can give you good justification, reasonable, not pathological justification to operate in the world as if bad things are happening or could happen because that's how you grew up. It's real. And it's not like what's this the quote or the statistic? It's like we're all two catastrophes away from being poor and homeless or whatever it is, right? Which is fair, like with the American healthcare system and stuff. It's if you can't afford that treatment, you don't have insurance, what you could be screwed literally. And so,
It's one of the biggest burdens people carry is healthcare debt.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I want to validate that there are real circumstances people come from. And so they don't develop this mindset because they're perfectly irrational or something. Like some people do, but a lot of people do come from genuine backgrounds of neglect and trauma and shame where they've learned that this is the adaptive way of seeing the world because that was literally true. And if I stayed thinking this way, the scarcity mindset, I will be safe. And that is valuable because sometimes being safe is more important first than being fulfilled, right? And so,
Basic first need,
yeah.
safety.
And so a lot of people do walk around all day not feeling safe. That's a real thing,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And so first and foremost, I always wonder with people how safe you feel. Question one. And then if we can answer that and you can get to feeling more safe by saving more money, whatever practical things you need to do to feel more safe, I think then we can start talking about what you're talking about with insecurity, which is the more, social, interpersonal, existential version of it, which is, you know, am I worthy of getting my needs met in these circumstances? And
There you said something that's important. Can I step
yeah,
here? am I worthy? People listening to us understand that when we're talking about fear, insecurity, dread, which we'll get within a second here, there's so many other issues involved with just fear. If someone feels profoundly undeserving to get what they need, then they're going to be afraid usually of something bad happening if they try and get it. And that's fear. It comes out like fear, but it's really about deserving.
Yeah.
See, so we want you to always keep in mind when you're listening to us that there's a multitude of factors that make a person who they are.
Yeah.
And impact who they are societally too, obviously.
Absolutely. Of course. And so it's always important to be clear. And maybe this is only something you can figure out with a therapist. Maybe you can do it by yourself. I don't know. It depends. But, if it's like my basic needs are okay, they're not perfect, but they're okay, then the question is like deserving, right? And so deserving is a deeper thing often. And then the question becomes to me, like practically speaking, if you don't believe that you deserve to be okay, what do you deserve? That's the question that I'm curious about. Because some people don't necessarily have the opposite opinion where they deserve to suffer, but some people just deserve to be the same. Like, I don't need to change. I can just be exactly where I am, and I don't have to grow and I don't have to regress. So, to me, question one, after the basic safety piece is taken care of, is what do you actually believe you deserve now? Do you believe you deserve worse? Do you believe you deserve better grandiosely? Do you believe you deserve nothing different, just existence, right? Because whatever those three, I mean, maybe there's more answers, but however you answer the question,
Probably, yeah.
that will tell me where we can start. Because if you believe you deserve exactly the same, not worse, not better, then the question for me is, well, why are we in therapy? Because if you're
a good question, yeah.
well, I mean, it's generally, dear listener, that's actually a great question regardless. But regardless of topic, like, why are you really here? But for this particular topic of insecurity, if you're still feeling insecure, but everything is going exactly the way you think it should go in your life, then there's a discrepancy that makes zero sense to me as a person. You're going to have to educate me
Yeah.
about this discrepancy.
Right.
So everything is going the way it's supposed to go. You're making enough money, you have the family you want, you're in a good relationship, whatever, you got the things you want, right? But you're here and there's a discrepancy. So like you feel insecure, but everything is going precisely the way you believe it should go.
Well,
Help me understand.
again, you're bringing up the complexity of a human being. You're talking in my mind about conflicts that you can hear two distinct parts of you. The one part says, I want better. The other part says, I don't deserve better.
Possibly.
Or I want better, but I'm scared to death to pursue better,
Or
et cetera, et cetera.
the other version of that is also, I grandiosely want better. Like I just, back to entitlement,
You
like
mentioned that, yeah.
I deserve amazing things when in reality, like your life is super good. What are we talking about? Right?
Good point.
So there could be a conflict between like, I'm actually getting my needs met, but then like, because of insecurity and maybe some narcissistic injuries or whatever, you believe you deserve amazing things.
Right.
Even though you haven't put in the effort to get those amazing things or haven't had the good luck or whatever it is. And so like insecurity can show up on the high end of the spectrum, the low end of the spectrum, or kind of in the middle is kind of what I'm trying to say. And so depending upon where you start, I kind of want to know what your goal is, because if you really do believe you deserve grandiose outcomes, like what are we doing to get them?
Right. I got you. Hey, listen, this is all good stuff, and we're going to do a lot more of this, but let's make sure we touch on dread
Yeah.
before we end today. Yeah. When we talk about dread, we're usually talking about trauma.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a person who relives an overwhelming sense of fear, dread, annihilation, uh, destruction that it can be extremely crippling, particularly if they're reliving routinely, regularly, versus just on an occasion that they get triggered and they get out of that triggering situation, get back to normal, and they're fine. And they could be fine for months and months. But people who relive that over and over again, it's very crippling. to
Yeah. Yeah.
and we want you to know there's a lot of solutions for reliving trauma, many different
Oh, of course.
techniques to help you stop reliving trauma. We're not going to go into all that kind of stuff today, but know that there are solutions because that's not a great place to live. And if anybody's around you, it's not a great place for them to be because when you're reliving, you can also be projecting things onto other people or into other people that are not about them.
Easily.
And that can cause a lot of relationship damage too. And so to understand what you're going through is really important because it also can bring people who care about you in to help you versus become the focus of your projections. Yeah. They're going to hurt me. They're hurting me when no, you were hurt when you're 3 years old or 1 through 8 years old or whatever the case may be. They're not hurting you. They're actually love you and want to help you, but you're placing on them a picture of the person who hurt you.
Yeah. Projection.
You know, literally projection. Yeah, we call it interjection technically, actually, but yeah, but a projection is what makes the most common sense to people. That it's like a movie screen. You're putting it right on them, so you're not seeing your spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend. You're seeing somebody really. You're filtering them through the past and really project onto them that they're the person that's hurting you or gonna hurt you or is a threat to you when they're not. So again, if you're resonating with this kind of attitude, belief system, know there's a lot of good help available, all kinds of treatments for different kinds of what most people now call trauma. A lot of it's analytically called annihilation of the self when it's really more developmental stuff. That you feel like you're being destroyed. And if you can imagine what that would feel like to a person, of course, you have a child, it's an overwhelming condition that brings with a lot of suffering. But no, there's tons of help for people that are going through stuff like that, and find that mental health professionals is equipped to deal with that kind of stuff, and you'll get a lot of benefit from it.
You bet.
Right.
And on the practical side, also just real quick, I think even if you don't have the means to get therapy or you haven't found the right therapist yet, if you're experiencing a lot of dread, like a daily or a couple days a week dread, definitely find people. There are people you can talk to. There are people you can talk to as friends, maybe, or in a spiritual community or self-help group, or there's like NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, has support groups. But like find people because we can cope with dread by doing like breathing exercises, and that's good, and that might reorient you. But really, what all of us want most of the time, is someone, at least one person that we feel safe enough to talk to about the dread so that at least we can be seen and understood, even if we don't do any magical healing or whatever. And so I want to give a shout out to ordinary relationships because I think
Right.
mental health really is about the quality of our community and our relationships. It's not really about your brilliant insight or your coping skills, in my opinion. It's about your capacity to just leverage people. Leveraging people to take care of you in the way that's appropriate for what you need is mental health, in my opinion.
Well, I can
And
give you an example of this.
yeah,
My home group in AA, a couple of us are looking back on when it started 40 some years ago.
yeah,
Probably 95% of the men that came to that group had been severely abused.
sure.
So as people grew and changed, got help, different kind of help, you found people that really intimately understood what you had experienced.
Yeah,
And that can make all the difference in the world and save some money on therapy too. If it's enough for you, to do it like that. But yeah, there's a lot of resources, but to find that one person who really gets it, and I find, frankly, I don't know about your experience, but I find a lot of my patients try to, the more they grow, the more the better they can explain it to people and get their
exactly.
needs met. But
Exactly.
for a long time, sometimes people do not get it. They don't get projection. It doesn't make sense. It's like alcoholism. It doesn't make sense. Well, just stop.
Yeah.
Just don't do as much drugs.
Or just breathe. I mean, like, if just breathing worked, then, everyone would be cured pretty quickly. But unfortunately, a lot of what we need is we need to have a new experience of ourselves and other people, and that takes time.
Well, I joke about trauma all the time that people like me look at, why are you not benefiting from these techniques that are there to help you with your trauma?
Yeah.
And I find that the resistance to change, it can be profound in some people. So you have to, I teach people breathing techniques very quickly to help them. I tell them they're not helpless. I reinforce you are not helpless. You were helpless then,
Right.
not helpless. I used to make people lift their leg up and their arm up to prove psychosomatically that they're not helpless.
Not helpless. Yeah.
And when you're not helpless, you have power. You can stop the reliving.
Right.
Big, and as well as in breathing techniques, things like that. But people resist using those techniques for themselves because of many reasons.
Exactly.
Wishes, longings, conflicts, and that's where I hone in with the people because they're not stupid, so it's like, why are you not using what you know?
That's another episode, probably.
Oh, it's a long episode. So we'll finish this up today and say, look, I hope we were helpful to you in talking about fear, insecurity, and dread. Pervasive in our society. We all have fear because we're all human.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't all have dread other than an extreme situation, or certainly not chronically. And insecurity is in degrees. And the more insecure you feel, the more likely it'd be helpful to get some help.
That's right.
So if you're resonating with these things, then certainly, take them to heart and do something with them to help yourself. And, we'll see you next time we get together.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Encouragement for Living Life. We hope you were encouraged by today's discussion. If you have a question, you can email us at lockwoodwithlockwood@gmail.com, and we will do our best to answer it on one of our shows. Hope to see you next time.